The Game Awards are just around the corner, and even closer yet, their announcement of the nominees to win Game of the Year. In this video, I'm here to predict my best guess on who those nominees will be. Now, before someone has a fucking meltdown in the comments, not all of these would be my personal choice, or what you would call fan favorites. I mean, that's what the Player's Voice Award is for. These nominees are my best guess based on cold, hard facts and critical reception. TGA's Game of the Year is decided by fat cat aristocrats. 90% of the decision is based on critic votes, so this list leans heavy on what reviewers love, with fans acting like a final tiebreaker. In other words, it's less about your whims and wishes, nor is this like choosing a racehorse based on which has the coolest fucking name. This looks at track records, status, Metacritic averages, and overall industry buzz. To get the Game of the Year nod, a game usually needs universal acclaim, some cultural impact or innovation, and that special wow factor. Before we get to the nominees and what title I actually think will win Game of the Year, let's start with some honorable mentions and borderline contenders that I think will nearly make the cut, if only the winds blew differently. Ghost of GOTY. Now, this is Sucker Punch's standalone sequel to Ghost of Tsushima, and it's basically a samurai epic set in the 1600s Hokkaido. It had a ton of hype and delivered a rock-solid experience. Beautiful world, brutal combat. Critics gave it generally favorable reviews, Metacritic being at 86, with 94 of them recommending it. By any normal year standards, Ghost of GOTY is a shoo-in for awards. It's a fantastic game that would represent the big budget action category well. The only reason I have it just outside the top 6 is that the 2005 competition is fierce. An 86 score in this crowd is like getting an A- in a class full of A+ students. Some outlets knocked it for not innovating quite as much as they hoped. You know, critics. They always gotta fucking find something. Blueprints. Here's one that many casual gamers might not even know, but it's the indie puzzle adventure that reviewers fell in love with. Blueprints hit in April, and for a while it was actually the highest rated game of 2025 on Metacritic. It's a brain-bending first-person puzzle game. Imagine if Myst had a baby with Spelunky and you're kinda on the right track. It earned a 92 on PC, although console versions landed a lot lower due to some performance issues. Critics gave it glowing reviews for its intricate design, praising it as endlessly intriguing. So why isn't it in the main 6? Well, as much as I adore when a niche game breaks through, I suspect Blueprints might be a victim of its niche. It's a single dev project, no big marketing, and notably it only supports English, which definitely could hurt the international jury. It also lacks some quality of life things like colorblind support. Basically, a few small factors might keep it from the Game of the Year big leagues, but make no mistake, it'll likely dominate the best indie category, and it damn sure deserves recognition. If TGA nominations were about purely the score, then this would be in, but they also consider reach and impact as well. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. God, as much as I want to put this in the 6th nominee, I can't. I mean, this would be my personal pick without a shadow of a doubt. Talk about a passionate fan base. The sequel to the cult favorite medieval RPG garnered a devoted following this year. KCD2 is an unapologetically hardcore, realistic RPG. Many players and some critics absolutely adored it, praising its storytelling and improved polish over the first game. It reviewed well, mid-80s generally, and in a lighter year, it might have had a decent shot at a nomination. But in this packed field, KCD2 likely gets delivered to the honorable mentions pile. Its reviews were just a notch lower than the top tier contenders, and it doesn't quite have the universal buzz that the others do. Still, credit where due, Warhost Studios leveled this sequel up, and its fans will swear it's their personal Game of the Year, even if it doesn't make the official list. A couple extra shoutouts. Arc Raiders turned out to be a blast in the co-op shooter space, and some fans swear it's Game of the Year material, but realistically, the TGA jury tends to overlook purely multiplayer shooters unless they really revolutionize the genre. And I'm sorry, Monster Hunter Wild fans, although you launched to great reviews and initially seemed like a strong awards candidate, however, as the months went on, the buzz cooled off considerably. Judging also how this was received by the public, sitting at mixed reviews off Steam, yeah, I don't think critics are gonna risk their reputations on this. All right, with that out of the way, let's get to my predictions for the top 6 nominees for Game of the Year. Split Fiction. First, it's the follow-up to Joseph Fares' 2021 Game of the Year winner, It Takes Two. And let me tell you, Fares did not fumble the bag here. Split Fiction feels like It Takes Two on steroids, delivering an even wilder co-op adventure. Critics ate it up and asked for seconds, often calling it hilarious, compassionate, and a delightful new benchmark for multiplayer experiences. In fact, across the board, this game racked up perfect scores and praise. It's hard to argue with that kind of reception. Split Fiction combines heartfelt storytelling and ingenious gameplay variety, jumping between game genres and scenarios like a fever dream. 1 minute you're platforming through a fantasy dragon's lair, next you're a sci-fi ninja dodging lasers. Now the main competition for the 6th spot was fierce. I agonize over whether to give it to Ghosts of GOTY, which has the flashy Sony cinematic pedigree, but in the end, I think Split Fiction has the edge. It's also fresh in voters' minds despite releasing earlier in the year. Hazelight's reputation and the sheer fun factor should carry it. Death Stranding 2 on the beach. Now, I'd love to see Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 take the spot. Opinions on Death Stranding 2 range from mind-blowing cinematic genius to what the fuck is this delivery sim? It's the classic Kojima decisiveness. In fact, I'm convinced if Kojima took a literal shit, it would still find its way as a nominee. But when it comes to Game of the Year contention, the numbers and pedigree speak loudly. DS2 performed notably better than its predecessor, landing around an 89 to 90 average score. And for context, the original Death Stranding got mixed reviews, yet still secured a Game of the Year nomination in 2019. So the sequel's higher scores and more refined gameplay make the nomination spot highly likely. Reviewers praised DS2 for doubling down on Kojima's unique, ambitious style. It's weird, it's bold, and yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous. Given its film-like storytelling and star-studded cast, it's hard to see this one not land. In other words, it stands out from the crowd, which counts for a lot. Now, is it everyone's cup of tea? Fuck no. Even some critics who enjoy DS2 noted it can be indulgent and slow, but the impact and artistry here is hard to ignore. The Game Awards jury tends to include at least one ultra cinematic, author-driven title, and Kojima's latest fits that bill perfectly. With strong reviews, massive name recognition, and that arty prestige vibe, Death Stranding 2 should secure the nomination. Winning, however, is another matter entirely. Donkey Kong Bonanza. This is Nintendo's big, bold 3D platformer for the Switch 2 that swung into the scene and damn near took over. The Game Awards loves to include at least one Nintendo title in Game of the Year if it's deserving, and this one is. After a year without Mario or Zelda in the race, DK is here to represent the big N. This game is the full package. Nostalgia play, check. Modern design and polish, check. Critically beloved, absolutely yes. Donkey Kong's first 3D outing since the N64 days landed a 90 in Metacritic, making it one of the highest rated Nintendo titles of the year. In fact, early reports showed all Bonanza critics' reviews were positive, not a mixed or negative score in sight. That's rarer than finding a blue shell in first place. The Odyssey team at Nintendo EPD Tokyo developed this, and it shows. Bonanza is bursting with imaginative level design and that trademark Nintendo charm. Sure, there's a few gremlins on forums calling it a mindless collectathon, but most players and reviewers found it charming, incredibly fun, and mechanically deep. A game that rewards curiosity and leaves a huge goofy grin on your face. You can literally smash through environments in this game, which is both a gameplay mechanic and a great metaphor for how Bonanza busted into the scene. And let's not overlook how Bonanza has been a commercial hit too. It had Switch 2 consoles flying off the shelves and quickly became a party favorite for family and hardcore fans alike. I am absolutely confident Bonanza will snag a nomination, giving the lineup some platforming joy amidst all the gritty RPGs and action games on the list. That's the kind of variety the Game of the Year category thrives on. Don't sleep on the 8. Bonanza has a real shot at being on that list. And who knows, maybe even pulling an upset. Hades 2, a game that practically drips with the blood of its enemies and tears of overwhelmed critics. Supergiant Games had an almost impossible task: follow up 2020's Hades, a modern classic, and somehow meet those sky-high expectations. Well, they didn't just meet them, they blasted past them like Zeus's own thunderbolt. The full release of Hades 2 launched in September to rapturous reviews earning scores in the mid-90s on Metacritic. Seeing those scores, you'd think Hades 2 sold its soul to achieve perfection. But nope, it's just that damn good. The game keeps the slick, just one more run roguelike action of the original and doubles down with a new protagonist and a fresh mythology twist. Critics were drooling over the gameplay, art, and music, terming it as snappy and delightful, with combat that feels as tight as a well-timed parry. You'd have better luck finding a needle in the underworld than finding a critic who said, it's alright. The only nitpick anyone had was there was a bit of drama about the ending not being as epic as everything before it. But guess what? Supergiant even responded with a patch adding more ending scenes. Talk about listening to feedback. With its pedigree, polish, and pantheon of praise, Hades 2 is a shoo-in for a Game of the Year nomination. It's got that indie spirit with AAA level execution, and it's as addictive as ambrosia. Plus, who doesn't want to see an indie roguelike rub shoulders with the big boys on stage? Hades 2 hit the industry like a fiery chariot, blazing a trail that few games could follow. Mark my words, it'll be standing tall among the nominees, ready to give even the bigger budget games a run for their money. Next up, Hollow Knight Silksong, a game so anticipated that its release day broke digital storefronts. No joke. So many people tried to download this fucking game at launch that Steam and the Switch eShop crashed. Now, I'd like to think Game of the Year really comes down to this game and my #1 nominee spot. But again, what the fuck do I know? I do, however, think this game will absolutely clinch the Player's Voice Award, however. Team Cherry's sequel had nearly mythic expectations after the original Hollow Knight became an indie legend, and somehow Silksong lived to the hype. Critics and fans welcomed Hornet's new adventure with open arms and rave reviews. On Metacritic, Silksong is sitting in the 90 to 94 range depending on the platform, basically universal acclaim across the board. It's one of those games that reminds us why we love this medium. Stunning hand-drawn art, a haunted, playful soundtrack, tight Metroidvania gameplay, and lore for days. Playing Silksong feels like dancing with a chainsaw, elegant and deadly at the same time, and somehow you're still smiling through the pain. Critics particularly praise the expanded scope. The sequel is not just Hollow Knight 1.5, it's a full-blown epic. The consensus, Silksong is damn near a masterpiece, even if its difficulty had some folks swearing at their screens. But honestly, that brutal challenge only made conquering its bosses feel sweeter than honey. Between the critical acclaim and the fan fever, seriously, Silksong's fan base has the intensity of a swarm of, well, killer bees. There's no way this isn't getting a Game of the Year nomination. It's the indie darling pick this year, much like its predecessor was poised to be if it had released in time for past awards. The Game Awards jury loves a good indie success story, and Silksong's both a critical darling and a bestseller. 5+ million players in 3 days. Holy fuck. Claire Obscure Expedition 33. If this doesn't get nominated, I'll personally exile myself off the internet and delete this fucking channel. This RPG came out of nowhere like a black stallion charging through a battlefield, and it blew critics away. We're talking meta scores in the 91-92 range across all platforms. A level of acclaim most big studios would kill for. Even more impressively, this is from a new French studio, Sandfall Interactive, with a debut title that outclassed the AAA giants. Critics and fans alike describe Expedition 33 as a masterpiece and praised its gorgeous dark fantasy world, emotional story, and a modern twist on turn-based combat. It took Square Enix development philosophy that realistic graphics don't mesh well with turn-based combat and flipped that on its fucking head. It sold over 5 million copies by October. That is massive for a new IP, and achieved a 95% overwhelmingly positive review on Steam. This thing has fan art, theory threads, you name it. When Hideo Kojima and Neil Druckmann are tweeting praise for your game's story and quality, you know you've made it big. Given its universal acclaim and impact, Expedition 33 is as close to a Game of the Year nomination lock as it gets. It's the Elden Ring of 2025 nominees, a game that set a new bar for future RPGs to follow. If this wasn't already obvious, this is hands down my personal prediction for the Game of the Year, and you can absolutely come back and tell me if I'm right. Or wrong, whatever. Leave it in the comments. So there you have it, my predictions for the 6 Game of the Year nominees for 2025. Cutting it to 6 was like choosing a favorite child. Impossible, and you feel guilty no matter what. So, what do you think? Did I nail the top 6, or am I just talking out of my own ass? Let me know which games you would put on the Game of the Year list and which title you're rooting for to take the crown. Thanks for watching, and if you liked the video, why not subscribe?
The fight is not over.